Welcome to Hornbill TV's Explainer, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ngullie. Today we will be talking about a bill that, if passed in the Parliament, has the potential to have widespread ramifications on the socio-political framework and the socio-cultural fabric of India. One of the most anticipated and already despised bills expected to be passed in India soon is the Uniform Civil Code. Just a couple of days ago, the media reported that the government of India was expected to table a bill to implement the Uniform Civil Code. The bill is reportedly to be tabled in the monsoon session of the Parliament, which is scheduled for next month. Uttarakhand has already submitted the UCC for the state. There are no details in regard to its content. However, there are smatterings of reports here and there though. For instance, the marriageable age for women in Uttarakhand will be increased to 21 years. Marriage registrations would be made mandatory for all individuals. That's another detail. Individuals who do not register their marriage will not be eligible for government benefits. So these are details that are contained in the draft UCC for Uttarakhand. Again, another detail that is emerging from the media is that this is for Uttarakhand only. Live-in couples would need to inform their parents about their decision to live together without having to go through the usual route of legal marriage. Polygamy, another, the practice of taking more than one wife, will also be outlawed. That's what the details for the UCC for Uttarakhand says. Again, husbands and wives will be granted equal rights to seek divorce. So the draft for Uttarakhand already includes a recommendation also for population control. Okay, now let's talk about Nagaland. Back home in Nagaland, various organizations are starting to raise their objections against implementing the Uniform Civil Code in the state. For instance, the Nagaland Baptist Church Council also wrote a statement earlier saying that the UCC for Nagaland might infringe on the socio and religious rights and practices of the people. Similarly, the apex tribal organization, the Ausenden, also issued a statement. States such as Jharkhand, Meghalaya and Tamil Nadu are already raising their objections to the UCC before it is tabled in the monsoon session of the Parliament. For those who might be interested, Goa is the only state in India which has a uniform civil code. The Goa family law is a set of civil laws. It was originally the Portuguese civil code, and it continues to be implemented after its annexation in 1961. The Uniform Civil Code has colonial origins, ladies and gentlemen. During 1840, a uniform law that was enacted by the British was for crimes and evidence. After gaining independence from the British, India's founding fathers such as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar recommended a uniform civil code to be included initially in Article 35 of the Constitution of India in 1949, but personal laws, ladies and gentlemen, were kept out of the ambit of the code. Now back home in Nagaland, the Nationalist Democratic Progressive Party, which is allied with the BJP, has said that the Law Commission of India implementing the controversial Uniform Civil Code will have a negative impact on the freedom and rights of minority communities and the tribal populations of India. In the statement which the party released earlier, the NDPP said the process of implementing the UCC is still at its initial and nascent stage, for which the NDPP strongly urged the Government of India and members of the 22nd Law Commission to consider the matter. The party also said that federalism is the basic structure of the Indian Constitution, which should not be altered or destroyed by any means, the party said earlier. The idea of India, the NDPP said, is based on the idea of tolerance, respect for all sections, and of course appreciation of all faiths in the country, the party said. So ladies and gentlemen, let's have a look at what this Uniform Civil Code is all about. The Uniform Civil Code is a proposal in India that aims to replace all personal laws that are based on religion, customs and traditions with one common law for everyone irrespective of religion, caste, creed, sexual orientation and gender. So is the Uniform Civil Code part of the Indian Constitution? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Uniform Civil Code is actually mentioned in Part 4 of the Constitution of India. It is not something that came up only recently when the PJP came to power. The UCC has already been mentioned in the Constitution of India as a directive principle. We'll be talking about this in a little while. In the Constitution, referencing the Uniform Civil Code, it says that the state shall endeavor to secure for the citizens a uniform civil code throughout the territory of India. Interestingly, the Uniform Civil Code is part of the directive principles of state policy. The directive principles are not enforceable or justifiable in a court of law, although it is part of the Constitution and it is mentioned in the Constitution. We'll be explaining this in a little bit. Directive principles are basically the guiding spirit in regard to how the government should govern the country and its citizens. So if it's in the Constitution, why is the UCC not enforceable in the court of law? First thing, the Uniform Civil Code is not a law yet. It is just a principle directive, a guideline. It's just a bill that needs to be approved by the Parliament to become a law. The Uniform Civil Code mentioned in the Constitution is only a directive principle, a guiding force. So what is a directive principle? The difference between fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy is this. Fundamental rights are human rights conferred on citizens of India, and these rights are enforceable in the court of law and can stand in the court of law if there is an instance of violation. But on the other hand, the directive principles of state policy are ideals that are meant to be considered by the government, the lawmakers, when they formulate policies or enact laws. That's the difference between the two. The Uniform Civil Code Bill of 2018 is a proposed legislation by the BJP and it was floated in 2018. The objective of the Uniform Civil Code is to provide a unified and common set of laws for every Indian citizen irrespective of their religion, race, of course, and there is caste in India. Each religion and community in India has its unique set of laws governing matters of marriage, divorce, guardianship, adoption or inheritance of property. Once the code is implemented, personal laws will cease to exist. So India's population is approximately 140 crore as of 2021. Hindus are there, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs and Jains, they make up the majority of the religious population in India. Each of these faith groups and social groups have their own set of personal laws. Besides, there are various social divisions such as castes, tribals, backward communities and special category groups, etc. Each of these social categories have their own distinct cultural practices, language and personal laws that govern matters of marriage, divorce, alimony and inheritance. For instance, under Christian personal laws, a woman has to prove cruelty and abuse as well as adultery charges if she wants to obtain a divorce from her husband. But in the Muslim personal law, adultery is not recognized as a reason for a woman to seek divorce unless she can prove that the man committed adultery with a woman of evil reputation or something in that line. Again, Hindu personal laws allow the husband to seek divorce from his wife for adultery, but the wife cannot seek divorce on the same ground. She needs to prove cruelty or abandonment besides adultery to gain divorce from her husband. So therefore, these are the reasons. Once the code is implemented, once the UCC is implemented across India, the code will effectively remove all the different laws that govern various religious and social groups and categories. The code will instead create a set of new laws that are uniform across the board. For example, in a Christian family, there are certain set of rules when the wife wants to divorce her husband or the husband wants to divorce her. And this same case for divorce is made differently in a Hindu family. So instead of having these different sets of customs and practices, the UCC will have a single law that both the social categories will be able to utilize. This is the reason why both religious and social minorities in India are opposing the Uniform Code, as it infringes on their religious and social customs and rights, which are also their identity. It is true that the objective of the UCC is to implement the right to equality that is already enshrined in Article 14 and prohibition of discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth that is enshrined in Article 15 of the Constitution of India. However, as noble as the intention is, the Uniform Civil Code will also wipe out one of the most central elements of religious and social identity in India. Still, it is still too early to say if the UCC bill will be passed in the Parliament. It will have to clear both houses of the Parliament before it can become a law. The BJP is in majority currently in the Lok Sabha in India. It will be easy for the party to push the bill through, as it has an overwhelming majority in the lower house. So getting through the Rajya Sabha will be a totally different matter altogether, as the BJP and its allies are not in majority in the Rajya Sabha. There are 245 seats in the Rajya Sabha. Out of it, 8 seats are currently vacant. That makes the seats in the upper house 237 seats. The BJP will need the support of at least 119 Rajya Sabha members. Currently, the BJP has only 92 members in the upper house. So combined with other allied like-minded parties, the total strength of the BJP-led NDA in the Rajya Sabha is 109. That means what the BJP will need to get the UCC bill passed in Rajya Sabha will be 10 more members for it to successfully see that the bill is passed through the upper house. So this begs the question, if it is passed in both the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha, what happens to states such as Nagaland, which enjoy a unique status of its own? So will the UCC apply to Nagaland? Let's look at one of the most significant statutory tools that have been given to the state of Nagaland, Article 371A. Article 371A of the Indian Constitution grants a high degree of autonomy and self-governance to the state of Nagaland. It was inserted into the Constitution by the 13th Amendment Act of 1962, following what we know today as the 16-point agreement between the Centre and the Naga People's Convention in 1960, which led to the creation of Nagaland as a separate state in 1963. So Article 371A states that no Act of Parliament in respect of religious or social practices of the Nagas, Naga customary law and procedures, administration of civil and criminal justice involving decisions according to Naga customary law, and ownership and transfer of land and its resources shall apply to Nagaland unless the state's assembly decides by a resolution to do so. The provision is to protect and preserve the unique identity, culture, traditions, and customs of the Naga people. In other words, Article 371A enables the people of Nagaland to maintain their distinct identity and way of life while being part of the Indian Union, ladies and gentlemen. The legislative resolution right now is self-explanatory, as the state of Nagaland might use that function to reject the Uniform Civil Code. And I think this is being cited even by community organizations such as the Ausenden. However, besides the Nagaland State Legislative Assembly passing a resolution to bypass the Uniform Civil Code, in the event that it is passed in the Parliament, there is also an alternative. The alternative is Article 254(2), and this is the tool that Nagaland can use. Article 254(2) of the Constitution of India empowers state governments to pass legislations which negate the central acts in the matters enumerated on the concurrent list. The concurrent list contains subjects of common interest to both the union as well as the states. The concurrent list also includes marriage and divorce, adoptions, wills, succession, and these are subjects that make up the elements of the proposed Uniform Civil Code. The only catch here is that a state legislation passed under Article 254(2), in case Nagaland goes for it, will require the approval of the President of India. Let's see which route the Nagaland government will take in this regard. That was the explainer in regard to the UCC for today, ladies and gentlemen. Keep watching Hornbill TV. I'm Ngullie. See you next time.